Hi guys. Have you ever witnessed anything improbable, unreal, or even incredible? Whether we believe it or not, miracles do happen, and every year, amazing things take place on our planet. Things that are only possible thanks to a small number of enthusiasts who diligently do their jobs without even realizing that sooner or later, they will save dozens of people whom they don't even know. Today, I will share an incredible story with you. After watching it, even the most inveterate skeptics will see the world in a different light. September 7, 2010. This day became the second birthday for almost 100 people. It was on this day that the Tu-154 took off from the Mirny airport on its scheduled flight to Moscow. The takeoff went well, and nobody expected anything to go wrong. The 72 passengers and 9 crew members who were on board at the moment couldn't even imagine that the flight would be much shorter than expected. Actually, the aircraft only got as far as the village of Isma, located in the Komi Republic. 3 hours into their flight, the passengers were enjoying their flight in complete peace of mind. However, the plane wasn't meant to reach its intended destination. A complete electrical failure disabled all navigation systems on board. We couldn't figure out what had caused the electrical failure. A decision has to be made as quickly as possible. It was clear that there was no way to reach the destination or find a suitable alternative airfield. The aircraft crew was selflessly doing everything they could to save the situation, but the chances for salvation were minimal, the pilot in command later said. At that moment, the experienced crew members had only one thought: would they manage to save dozens of people's lives? However, they had no idea who would play a critical role in this emergency situation. And now, I'll introduce another person, the one who became the protagonist of this story. Sergei Sotnikov, the supervisor of the helipad in Izma. Several years before the events described in this story, there had been a small airport in that village. Being virtually abandoned, it was made into a helipad in late 2009, supervised by Sergei Sotnikov. The man spent a lot of time at work and was very diligent. He did many different jobs, but most importantly, he maintained the runway, even though it wasn't in his job description, and thus, he didn't even get paid for it. As our hero later said, "I'd been told to give up that difficult work 100,000 times because the airport had long been closed and there was no need for that runway. But even though nobody recognized my hard work, I believed in it. I believed that years later, a plane would land in our village." The man single-handedly maintained the runway in order for 12 years. He had to pull out the willow, which grew again and again between the slabs. Sergei also put a lot of effort into the runway drainage, realizing that unless he did it, the slabs would simply become unusable soon. In addition, he often argued with local residents who'd ride horses or park their cars on the runway. And one time, his neighbor chopped a pile of firewood and just left it right on the tarmac. Sergei didn't speak to him for several months after that. If only they knew that his long-standing hard work would soon save the lives of almost 100 people, and all the world's media would talk about him as a real hero. In the meantime, panic and anxiety were heating up on board of the plane. The experienced Tu-154 crew realized that they urgently needed to find a place for an emergency landing. The fuel pumps were about to turn off, which would inevitably cause the worst. In addition, the plane's route passed over the taiga, unfortunately for the passengers and the crew. No matter how the pilots tried, they couldn't find even a somewhat suitable landing site. Realizing how hopeless their situation was, the pilots decided to take a desperate step: to land the aircraft over the Izma River. They hoped that they would be able to land the plane on water near the village so that the local residents could provide first aid to the survivors when they saw the wreck. They understood perfectly well that not everyone would be able to survive in that scenario. Perhaps even only a few people. However, there was still a chance, even though a small one, that someone would survive. We were desperate. Theory is one thing, but practice is a whole other story, and the responsibility for all the people on board. Their lives depended solely on us at that moment. To be honest, we thought we were living the last minutes of our lives. We even said goodbye to each other. And as we were already getting ready to land the plane, a true miracle happened. The flight attendant noticed a strip, which on closer inspection turned out to be a runway. It was strange because the airport wasn't marked on aeronautical charts. However, that was our only chance for survival, the co-pilot recalled. Without a moment's hesitation, the pilots started an emergency landing. Flying a plane without navigation systems was like looking for a black cat in a dark room. Thus, they had to make do with what they had. A glass of water served as a horizon indicator, and the pilots' eyes were the only radar. Everyone held their breath. After all, they understood that they were just inches away from crashing. The electrical failure had also disabled the flaps control system, and therefore they had to land at a speed of 350 to 380 kilometers per hour, which was much higher than the normal 207 kilometers per hour. 2 attempts to land were aborted, allowing the pilots to access the condition of the runway. It was only on their 3rd try that a successful emergency landing was made at 07:55 local time. The crew's nerves were on edge, hearts racing, but their professional and well-coordinated work got the plane finally landed. Unfortunately, the runway was too short, and the aircraft overran it, ending up in vegetation. But, despite it all, the enthusiasm of Sergei Sotnikov, who for many years had kept the runway in order, made everything go as smoothly as possible. Neither the 9 crew members nor the 72 passengers were injured that day. As for the plane itself, its left landing gear was completely destroyed. The nose cone was pulled apart, fluid was leaking from its wheels, and all engines were broken. At first, it was decided to decommission the aircraft and leave it in the taiga due to severe damage. However, the plane was later ferried to Ukhta and then to Samaria, where it was repaired. The Tu-154 rose into the sky again. Few believed that the aircraft could be used for regular flights again after the accident. As it turned out, the skeptics were wrong. The pilot in command, Evgeny Gennadovich Novoselov, and the co-pilot, Andrei Alexandrovich Lemonov, were awarded the title of Hero of the Russian Federation. The rest of the crew received the Order of Courage. Sergei Sotnikov was awarded a Medal of the Order for Merit to the Fatherland, featuring his own portrait on one side and the Alrosa plane on the Izma runway on the other. These people had done everything they could to land the plane as safely as possible in such disastrous conditions when it seemed that everyone was doomed. In order to show their appreciation for Sergei and his work, people raised money and bought a snowmobile for the diligent worker. After all, it was especially difficult for him to get to work during the cold season. Of course, there were people who said that Sotnikov didn't deserve any special rewards. After all, he was only doing his job. However, if you think about it, the man did much more than he was required to, and it's easy to talk about heroic deeds sitting in a comfortable chair in a warm office. Soon after what happened, the Izma Museum of History and Folklore opened an exhibition entitled The Life-Saving Runway of the Izma Airport. People say that on September 7, 2010, there were lots of guardian angels over the village of Izma. But what made it possible for almost 100 people to survive? A miracle? A coincidence? Or maybe a lucky tail number? Some sort of a combination of them all. Probably. This incredible incident will remain in the history of aviation as the miracle of Izma. Sergei Sotnikov still receives letters from the survivors who express their gratitude to him. So, friends, what do you think about this story? Be sure to write about it in the comments. And that's it for today. Give the video a thumbs up and see you soon. Bye soon.